फास्ट फैशन क्या है, जिसको लेकर हम इस शो में बात करेंगे। जो आप कपड़े पहनते हैं, जो फैशन आप देखते हैं, हर रोज़ बदलता है, बदलते वक्त के साथ तेज़ी से फैशन बदल रहा है और बहुत कम वक्त में बदलते ट्रेंड जो हैं वो क्यों फ़िक्र पैदा कर रहे हैं और क्यों स्लो और सस्टेनेबल फैशन की बात करना यहाँ पर ज़रूरी हो गया है। इस रिपोर्ट में आप देखिए।
You see your favorite celebrity wear something cool, or you see a trendy catwalk style you love. You gotta have it. Before you have time to change your mind, someone has mass produced and released it in a store at a really cheap rate while it's still hot property. But oh god, the next day, something even cooler comes along. Get rid of all of these clothes and get the new ones in fast. Fast fashion can be defined as low-cost, trendy clothing that samples ideas from the celebrity culture. The idea is to get the newest styles in the market as fast as possible so shoppers can buy them while the trend is still popular. Fast fashion plays into the idea that repeating outfits is a fashion faux pas. Sadly, people discard the clothing once it goes out of style, which is very quickly, and all the discarded clothes end up in a landfill. Fast fashion leads to overproduction and consumption, making the fashion industry one of the world's largest contributors to pollution.
So what is the fashion industry as a whole doing about environmental damages of fast fashion? Is it even possible to address issues around fast fashion in a country like India? Joining us now, we have Ashish Chaturvedi, Head of the Environment and Energy and Resilience, UNDP in India. Jaspreet Chandok, Vice President and Head of Fashion at Rise Worldwide. And Rina Dhaka, needs no introduction, fashion designer of India. Ashish Chaturvedi, to you first. We've just seen what fast fashion is. Tell us again what the environmental impact of fast fashion is and why should this concern all of us?
Thanks for having me on the show. Of course, your visuals were quite revealing. You're quite right in pointing out that the statistics are very staggering. And the enormity of the situation can be gauged from the fact that every second, the equivalent of one garbage truck full of clothes is burned or dumped in landfills. Textile dyeing is world's second largest polluter of water. So we are actually talking about these intersecting environmental crises that we are facing of climate change, of biodiversity loss and pollution. And textiles actually contribute to, are a big evil for all of these three problems that we are facing right now. The fashion industry actually produces 10% of all humanity's carbon emissions, and it's the second largest consumer of world's water supply. When you think about the oceans, 35% of the microplastics, these teeny-weeny bits of plastics which are entering into our food supply chain, the oceans, about 35% of those microplastics come from the textile industry, especially the laundering of synthetic textiles like polyester. And estimates suggest that if we continue on the current trajectory, business as usual, the carbon budget of the textile industry would jump to 26%. Just imagine, it's almost 1/4 would come from the textile industry by 2050. So we're really talking about a very complex, global and multi-tiered industry, which is creating massive number of jobs as well. So it's not only about the negatives. Sure. We really have to think about the possibilities of engaging people in service to the environment as well. Not only and you have some people sitting in the panel as well. We're going to talk about that. But I think we have to really find the right balance, and business as usual, fast fashion as it is running right now can't really continue.
रीना जी, इसी पॉइंट पर मैं आपके पास आना चाहूँगा। आपका एक लंबा तजुर्बा रहा है बतौर डिज़ाइनर और आपने देखा है कैसे ये इंडस्ट्री बदली है इतने वक्त में। लेकिन अभी की अगर आप यहाँ पर ये ज़रूरत देखें, जो स्लो फैशन और सस्टेनेबल फैशन की बात की जा रही है, ये कितना ज़रूरी आपको लगता है? और भारत के अगर हम नज़रिए से देखें तो आपको कितना आसान लगता है ये बात लोगों तक पहुँचा पाना? क्या लोग इसको आसानी से एक्सेप्ट कर पाएंगे?
एक्चुअल में मेरे लिए ये एक टॉपिक है जो मैंने पिछले 10-15 साल से हर इंडियन पॉलिटिशियन जिसको मैंने कभी एनकाउंटर करा है, मैंने उनको रिक्वेस्ट करी है कि ये गाजीपुर में जो ये पहाड़ बन गए हैं कपड़ों के, और उसके कारण वहाँ जो स्लज और सुएज और हालात हैं, उनकी तरफ हमें एक्ट करना चाहिए। एनीवे, मेरा कोई इफेक्ट नहीं हुआ, पर मेरे लिए ये एक बहुत ही सिग्निफिकेंट ज़रूरत है इस टाइम की। और इलाज मैं नहीं जानती अकेले में, आई एम श्योर आप लोग will have the expertise, and somebody in India, we have so many talented people, we can put a think tank कि उसका हम क्या सोल्यूशन बनाएं जो एग्जिस्टिंग है। और गोइंग अहेड इन फ्यूचर मेरे कारण एक बहुत जरूरी रिक्वायरमेंट है कि प्लास्टिक जो इसमें हम कपड़े एक्सपोर्ट्स के पैक करते हैं, एन एक्सपोर्टर गेट्स वेरी टाइट शिपमेंट्स, फिर वो आगे फैब्रिकेटर को देता है और उसके आगे वो कई बार सब फैब्रिकेटर्स को जाते हैं। सो विच मीन्स द एंड रिजल्ट में वो उसके पास इतना ट्रिकल डाउन कम कैश इन हैंड है कि वो कुछ रिप्लेसमेंट जो है वो बहुत एक्सपेंसिव है, फिर वेट बढ़ जाता है, यानी कि कार्गो का कॉस्ट बढ़ जाएगा, बोथ बायर का या हमारा। सो वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट एसेंशियल्स इज टू फाइंड अ रिप्लेसमेंट टू प्लास्टिक विच इज अफोर्डेबल, which is also price sensitive, right, accessible, and is also accepted with the storm. The standards they accept by buyers all over the world, and उसका जो shipping का वजन है वो भी कम हो। दूसरा, जो डिजाइनर्स पैटर्न्स पे चलते हैं, पैटर्न मार्क होते हैं, तो कटिंग में जैसे कोई बनियान बनाओ या कुछ हो तो उनको वेस्टेज जिसको बोलते हैं, जो जा करके फेंका जाता है, जैसे जो कतरन आप बता रहे थे सर अभी, रोज इतनी वेस्ट होती हैं, वो हम कैसे रीयूज करें उसको, जिसको रद्दी वाले में जाए या झाड़ू में जाता है या कचरे में जाता है को, तो वो डिजाइन एक बने। So I feel उससे बहुत बहुत बड़ा फर्क पड़ेगा of using our salvages, our wastages, or to create patterns in a way that even out of the leftover area, a person will make something which becomes a part of the collection. दूसरा, of course, as they are now designers who are making refashion, और it's become a term. Refashion का मतलब वो पुराने कपड़ों को आप फिर से ही फैशन करके पहन सकते हो। एंड जैसे पुराने ज़माने में हमारे पैचवर्क की रज़ाइयाँ बनती थी, सो डोंट थ्रो अवे योर क्लोथ्स, ट्राई टू रीयूज देम एज क्राफ्ट और इंटरेस्टिंग आइडियाज। बट द बिगेस्ट क्राइसिस इज, in my eyes, is of the salvage from the clothing and the fashion industry, which is going every day as wastage, and how we can use that, and of course the use of to get a correct, affordable, easily accessible alternative to plastic.
All right. Well, good to have that inside, reality check from what actually happens. Thanks so much. But Jaspreet Chandok, Vice President and Head of Fashion at Rise Worldwide, India isn't just a global hub for manufacturing of fast fashion. We have our own fashion demand that has grown exponentially. Is sustainable fashion, and this leads one to ask, why should one embrace sustainable fashion? Can it also be a sustainable business?
No, absolutely. So, in fact, the work that Rise does in the country is run the Lakme Fashion Week in partnership with the Fashion Design Council of India as well. And we also run a lot of sustainable IPs in the country. So we actually award we have the largest award for sustainable fashion in the country called Circular Design Challenge. So one of the things that we've realized, because we've been working with a lot of stakeholders in India and across the world. So we work with the UNDP, in partnership with them. We work with retailers across the chain. So we'll work with an Aditya Birla Group, a Reliance Industries. And one of the things that we have realized is that organizations are putting in a lot more focus towards sustainable practices. And that's coming through commitments that they are making in media as well. We have a partnership called SURE, which is Sustainable Resolution, where 16 of the largest manufacturers of fast fashion or premium fashion in the country have come together with the Ministry of Textiles and the United Nations to actually make a pledge to become significantly sustainable by 2025. So that is from the producer level. But there is also the consumer level, because the producer can keep producing, but consumer has to also accept all of that. So there is a lot of work that we do in terms of driving consumer narratives around sustainability, that it is cool, it is what is relevant today, it is for the future. So let's say the t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, just for your reference, I'm just gonna go down a little, okay, is actually made from PET bottles that we collected at Lakme Fashion Week. We then converted it into fibers, and then we had, which was done by our Elan. And then we actually had Satyapal and Rajesh Pratap Singh design a limited edition t-shirt Out of that, we sent it out to all the influencers and stakeholders in the industry. And we are actually working towards Fashion Week becoming a carbon neutral event. We'll be the first in the country. All these narratives that we drive makes a significant amount of difference. Then we also have the fiber side of things, because the input into the product, when the producer gets it, also has to be sustainable.
Correct.
So we are actually driving all polyester usage in the country to be recycled polyester through RLN.
Fantastic.
We've actually created a silk substitute, because there is also, let's say, animal and, a usage of animal products that we look at with Tencel Lux, which is a global company. So a lot of work is being done in terms of finding sustainable fibers that can then input into the products.
इसको लेकर क्योंकि इस इंडस्ट्री में सबकी अपनी अपनी ज़रूरतें होती हैं, अगर आप देखें कपड़ों को लेकर भी सबके लिए एक साइज़ नहीं होता है। ऐसे में आपको क्या लगता है कि किस लेवल के बदलाव की ज़रूरत है प्रोडक्शन प्रोसेस को और ज़्यादा सस्टेनेबल बनाने के लिए, और आपको लगता है कि जो बड़े मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं वो इसमें की रोल प्ले कर सकते हैं जो छोटे लेवल पर जो प्रोड्यूसर्स हैं, मैन्युफैक्चरर्स हैं, उनके मुकाबले?
आई थिंक दोनों साइड को काम करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि ये दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लम दैट एक्सटेंड्स अक्रॉस द इंडस्ट्री. सो हमने जो देखा है कि ओवर द लास्ट 5-7 years, एंड वी वर्क विद ऑल द फैशन डिजाइनर्स इन द कंट्री, कि जो स्मॉल लेवल मैन्युफैक्चरर्स है, ओके, एंड एटलीस्ट एट द प्रीमियम लेवल, a lot of work is being done in terms of creating sustainable practices, both from a people perspective and from a waste management, a dyeing process, using Indian handcraft perspective. On the larger level, though, will be larger environmental impact. So, let's say if you were to look at the 16 manufacturers and brands that signed up with us for sure, okay, their total turnover in the year is 40,000 crores just out of India. So that's 40,000 crores worth of consumption. That if we can move towards sustainable fibers, sustainable actions and manufacturing processes, that's where the big impact will actually come in. And I think we also need to keep in mind that sustainability in India is unique. Unlike the world where it is only around the environment, this is also about people and practices and our hand textiles. And I think there's a lot of work that brings in sustainability through ensuring that जो हमारी textile techniques हैं, जो hand woven है, वो भी continues to grow in the country. So we are in a unique position. I'm actually in London right now. I was having a conversation with the London Fashion Week here, to see how we can create greater narratives. And globally, the biggest conversation right now is towards sustainability and how we can create sustainable linkages in best practices here in the UK and in India. So a lot of work across the chain, I think, करना पड़ेगा, और a lot of work is happening, but it is the aggregation that will make the true impact.
Yeah.
तो एक बड़े लेवल पर काम करने की सारा यहाँ पर ज़रूरत है। आशीष जी, आपके पास मैं यहाँ पर आता हूँ। एक जो बड़े स्तर पर वेस्ट की समस्या है वो भी एक बड़ी चिंता है। यूएनडीपी इंडिया किस तरीके से फैशन इंडस्ट्री और टेक्सटाइल इंडस्ट्री के साथ काम कर रही है सस्टेनेबल रिसोर्सेज प्रोसेस को बढ़ाने की, इसके ज़रिए इस वेस्ट को या ज़ीरो वेस्ट के टारगेट को अचीव करने के लिए?
हाँ, आई थिंक हमें थोड़ा एक ब्रॉडर पर्सपेक्टिव से भी इस चीज को देखना पड़ेगा। एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट, द कॉन्टेक्स्ट इज मच ब्रॉडर. It's about lifestyles for environment. I'm assuming some of you would have heard about it. The Prime Minister made this announcement at the COP in Glasgow last year about India's move towards lifestyles or promoting lifestyles for environment. And UNDP is working very closely with the Government of India, with the Niti Aayog and with the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change on promoting this broader narrative of lifestyles for environment, which thinks about sort of promoting sustainable consumption practices. Of course, fashion is one big element of it, but I think we need to have a broader conversation on sustainable lifestyles in general. Specifically on textiles, we are working very closely. So Mr. Chandok already mentioned us. So UN has a broader global sustainable fashion alliance. The UN agencies come together. And because it's such an important industry, it's so relevant for the environment, the climate and biodiversity, the UN agencies formed a global alliance, and we work very closely with businesses all over the world, including in India. But we also work very closely with communities. So I just came back from Ladakh, and we are working there with local artisans who are working on Pashmina, but on all other kinds of fibers as well. We are working on nettle fiber in Sikkim. We are working with herders who are trying to do some kind of artisanal work with wool in Uttarakhand as well as in other parts of the country as well.
Right.
And I think we need to take a broader sort of systemic view where we think about lifestyles in general, but we also look at sort of fostering these sustainable practices,
Both
because
at the
I think
global
the
and at the
traditional
local
values are really important as well.
Correct. Rina Dhaka, talking about global and at the local level, you've been speaking over the years consistently about sustainable fashion, thoughtful fashion being the only way forward as a designer and as a fashion house. But what about consumers? How can consumers be thoughtful about their decisions?
So one of them, as you see, is the simpler ways are refashion. The even easier thing is to rewear your clothes. I also feel not to wash, the clothes so much, because that also pollutes the environment. And even activities, frankly, even ironing, because wrinkle-free, now we have these options. Because it's not just that in organic fibers, there is also in the unorganic sector, as Jasprit ji pointed out, wherein the polyesters are being recycled, because India, as you know, is a large polyester wearing country. And A, it's affordable, and two, it's light, it doesn't crease, so not every man can afford it. But yes, in the upper levels of society, who they become the influencers, for them, A, to go into our own systems. There is so much promotion and talk about khadi. Because frankly, what it does is khadi consumes less water. It is a bit coarser. It does have discrepancies. It may not go into a perfect white. But it is a fabric which is completely organic. It's sustainable. So there is a lot of, let's say, propaganda, a desire from designers, from the government, from the back end to come out and start using indigenous fabrics like khadi, like we did in the past. And of course, to recycle, to rewear, to give away, to whatever, patchwork. It's the best trend I feel in the world, because right now it is trending. But of course, designers are innovative. They're weaving the patches. They're also creating prints out of it. But ideally, patchwork is the best way to recycle your leftover side wings and the clothing. We can use it as bags, as accessories, like maybe the designer who you have given the mission or the task to will come up with. But going forward, I think sustainable in clothing, we need to make simple step changes. I just think just rewear your clothes. You don't have to hoard so much. You can recycle, rearrange the trends or refashion it, and be conscious of what you're buying now. Look at the tags, because where do they come from?
Thank you all for joining us, for all of your work in this field over the years, over the decades, but also helping us create some awareness today. We really appreciate your time. So bigger fashion houses, brands,